Hey, beautiful people. I see dead people, and so can you. Now, when I was feeling into this video, I've been talking over the last couple of weeks about my story when I was 7 years old. And when I was feeling into this video, I had this kind of thought, felt like a nudge to be honest, that if we were to take, say, 50 people randomly off the street and ask them, do they have a belief in the afterlife? I think we would be quite surprised. I think actually the numbers of people that do would be up in the upper end now. Yeah, if we kind of done that, say, 20 years ago, I think it would be in the lower end. Now, what's changed? What's happened for that shift? You know, something that was, say, very taboo 20 years ago has become even more normalized. Why? And if we asked people why, I think so many people would say, well, I don't know, it's something I just feel. Or it's coming from direct experience where they have felt contact. They've had their own personal experience around that contact. I think, feel, actually no, we'd be really pleasantly surprised. So it shows us that we are shifting. We are really, really shifting. And, you know, I have the privilege and honour and the gift most days to talk to people that are having those experiences. And one of the things that I'm seeing is more and more and more younger people absolutely become activated. Like they are being born into this world with that veil so thin. You know, I look at my own experience. I know I was born into this world with pure knowing, like powered and fueled by empathy. So when I say I see, I also mean knowing, pure knowing. Now picture this if you can. There I am, 7 years old, and I'm waking up in the middle of the night. I woke up in the middle of the night and I can sense a presence in the room. I can sense a presence at the end of the bed. And then I see this lady and I am terrified. Even right now, feeling into that, I can remember that. It's like left such a powerful impression upon my psyche. And that was by design. Because you would think, why would you want to scare that person? Why? You know, if this is a loved one, and that isn't always the case, if this is a loved one, why would they want to scare me? It was about leaving the impression. It was about that becoming an unshakable experience. How many of you have woken up in the middle of the night to sense something, that something's there, either at the end of the bed, in the doorway, the landing at the top of the stairs? So there I am, I wake up and I can feel this presence at the end of the bed, and then she steps out of the shadows, and I remember how terrified I was. And it took me a long time to realise what I'm about to say to you. I was that terrified. I felt, and I was always miffed by this, I felt that I had absolutely screamed. I'm only 7. Screamed for my mum and dad. And the thing is, we're living in a 2 up, 2 down little cottage. Yet they never came to see I was okay. And that always was a question mark for me. up until probably about 8 years ago, roundabouts, where I woke up one morning and I completely had an epiphany that I completely knew that I was frozen to the spot in fear, paralyzed, and I thought I'd called out, but I was calling out in my head. And I don't know if that was like a memory that was unlocked within me, or it was pure knowing, or it was a nudge from our unseen friends to give me the answer. But what I do know completely is that I never called out. I was frozen to the spot in fear. Then, and I have no recollection of this, the next morning, shaken, described this lady to my dad in so much detail, he knew exactly who it was, and it shook him up too. He knew that I had just described my gran, my mum's mum. Of course, it was his mother-in-law, and he never got on with her. He never got on with her, and he was like, his words were, "Oh my God, what is she doing haunting the house?" Right, now, again, that is some random event. It's not some random person showing up. It was absolutely by design to grab hold of my dad by the scruff of his neck and pull him into the experience. And the reason why my dad potentially had the ingredients to knock that experience out of me, because he had this belief, when you were dead, you were dead. Very, very, very different now. He's had a lifetime of experiences too. And maybe they were activated from that moment onwards. Because what we're talking about here is activations. He was grabbed into that experience, which become an unshakable experience. You know, it shook him, it shook me, and that was all by design. That was them making sure the deal had been sealed. And I remember what it felt like to be ever and ever and ever. There she stood at the end of the bed. I felt like I was screaming. I was paralysed to the spot. And after what felt to be forever, she stepped back into the shadows and disappeared. Next morning, shaken, clearly, I described my experience to my dad. He knew exactly who it was. Now, get this. This is where it gets very surreal. But important jigsaw pieces is that move forward through time. I'm in my early 20s. I'm now consciously exploring this, and myself and my dad end up at a mind body spirit festival, local festival, quite a big one. We're walking around and this lady comes over to us, says hello to both of us, really pleased to see us, gives me a kiss on the cheek. "Hello, Shane." And I'm like, "Who are you?" You know, and she laughs. She's like, "You don't remember me, do you?" And my dad's like, "I remember you." They start talking, and my dad was like shocked, because not only was she at this mind body spirit festival, she was working there. Okay, and my dad was like, "Gosh, I never knew that you was involved in all of this." And she looked at him and laughed and went, "Of course you didn't, because I couldn't have told you at the time. You would have laughed." And she looks straight at me and she smiles. This lady was my babysitter. Now, she was a professional working medium. Again, that is not a random event, right? So I'm having these experiences. She in the background was nurturing them, and she said, You know, Dad looked over me and went, Shane, oh my God, he said, I cannot tell you the times that me and your mum come home after being out for the evening and would turn around and say, yeah, Shane's gone off, he's fine, he's gone off to sleep, and I've had a really interesting conversation with him. Never really explaining what she spoke to me about. And my dad went, oh, okay. Never thought too much of it at the time. But what she was doing was nurturing this experience, parallel, running alongside my experiences. Okay, up until I have that moment in time. You know, it's like none of that is a random event. None of it is a random event. You know, how incredible is that? You know, and when I kind of look back for when I was a child, you know, I was such a shy, sensitive little boy. Picture this if you can, custard blonde hair, big blue eyes, really deeply sensitive. And there's a good friend of mine who I've known for over 40 years. She knows me, and she knew me in my early teens, and she still remembers how I was like that in my early teens, how I was like that. You know, that sensitivity allows us to do the work the way we do, right? It's like deep sensitivity. That is what fuels us to have the ability to work in the way that we do. But that's not always an easy path. But what happens over time, it becomes embodied and it becomes alchemized. You know, it becomes alchemized into grit too. Something that I call like divine grace, which is all that heart, all that sensitivity, kind of alchemized into what I call the divine will, which is the grit, it's the truth. So being able to work in the way that I do is being able to kind of just absolutely know, to feel, to sense, to see that person in front of you absolutely transparently, and then what is in the room feeling into that transparently too. And then being able then to use that kind of grit, conviction and that truth to deliver where the healing is required and needed. And sometimes they can be really painful, brutal, but always serving truth. So it's a fusion of divine grace, divine will. But as a child, that can be really overwhelming. That sensitivity can be really overwhelming because it's like it comes online. You're born into the world with this huge sensitivity, and the divine will is not activated yet. It's not come up. It's not rose up in you yet. So you've just got this sense of just feeling everything, and that's going to be overwhelming. When you kind of embody it, and then that divine will comes online, you can then hold it really, really differently. And then you're able to kind of see transparently, and also then deliver the conviction on the truth of what you see. Now, those of you that, you know, have that empathy, you know, I'm seeing, you know, I'm really honoured and blessed to work the way that I do and to meet so many incredible people each and every day. And one of the things that I'm seeing is how many younger people are absolutely being born into these times with this pure knowing. It's like the veil is really thin to them. It's like they are seeing the world with so much transparency, and that again is by design. Because if you see the world with that much transparency, the truth cannot hide. And that is what we are requiring to allow to this world to be alchemized and turned inside out and upside down. because the world is turning upside down. It's also turning inside out. It's becoming alchemized. These younger people that are coming into the world with that sense of pure knowing and deep transparency, and with fire in their hearts, and that divine will rised up and activated, are going to be able to kind of lean into the world and see truth. And then they're going to hold that truth and then hold the illusion accountable. But that is not always an easy journey. That can be the most paralyzing journey. It's like you can actually turn that sensitivity inwardly, in on yourself. And the other thing about it is it's like walking around without a layer of skin. So I'm not sure how many of you may have seen one of my recent videos on psychic protection. I think it's called along the lines of the only form of psychic protection you ever need. Really worth a watch. It's going to help you. Love to know your thoughts so far on this. And I would really encourage you and ask you to share this with a friend, you know, someone who you may feel will find this useful. So there you are, food for thoughts, all food for thought. You know, so none of it was by chance, it was all by design. And as a good teacher of mine says, incredible teacher, predestined alongside free will. And that kind of goes a little like this. Predestined rocks up and drops this huge pivotal experience within your world, and then says to you, right, what are you going to do with it? You know, because so many of us are kind of born into this world with purpose, but we've got to lean into the purpose too. It's not like the predestined event is enough. It's the sum of it, it's the core of it, it's the heart of it. But unless we do something with it, that's all that ever remains, a predestined event that we touch and then it just kind of drifts by. It's about us also leaning into the predestined event. As it says, it rocks up, drops it in your lap, drops it into your experience, and then says to you, right, what are you going to do with it? All food for the soul, all food for thought. I'm going to leave that with you. I'd love to hear your experiences. What have been your experiences of contact, and how has that shaped your purpose? Love to hear that. Love to hear your stories. As always, sending you all so much love. And above everything else, keep shining.